On March 18th, 1980, a young historian named Marty Sherwin, then age 43, signed a contract with Knopf Publishing to write a biography of J. Robert Oppenheimer, the father of America's atomic bomb. Now, at the time they did this, both Marty Sherwin as the writer and Knopf as the publisher, they both thought this was going to be a 5-year project. And they agreed to pay him $70,000. $35,000 was going to be paid in 1980 when he started the book. And $35,000 was going to be paid in 1985 when he finished the book. A lovely idea. There was only one problem. 5 years later, in 1985, not only had Marty Sherwin not finished writing the book, he had not started writing the book. He had not put pen to paper. There was not one word written 5 years later. So Marty Sherwin was super thorough, super meticulous, super disciplined as a researcher and as a historian. And guess what? J. Robert Oppenheimer was super complex, super complicated as a human and as a scientist and as a person and as a father and a husband, et cetera, et cetera. Oh my God, so much complexity. And guess what? The era in which he lived, also very complicated. So you put together a meticulous researcher with a complicated subject in a complicated time, and Marty Sherwin fell down a rabbit hole of research on Oppenheimer that would take him 20 years. For the next 20 years, he amassed 50,000 pages of original source materials. It included 8,000 pages of FBI records. It included 100 conversations that Marty Sherwin had with people who knew Oppenheimer, who worked with Oppenheimer, who had stuff to say about Oppenheimer, who cared about Oppenheimer. And he recorded these conversations, and he transcribed these conversations, and that was in the 50,000 pages of original sources too. 50,000 pages were amassed in boxes, and he had boxes everywhere. The poor guy was swimming in boxes. He had boxes in his basement, and boxes in his attic, and boxes in his office, and boxes in his bedroom. He just didn't have one word written on one page. Now, at first, when the 5-year deadline came and went, it became something of a family joke, an inside family joke. Marty Sherwin's son, Alex, remembers that when he was growing up, his father would say to him, "Alex, it's time for you to do your homework." At which point Alex would say, "Dad, it's time for you to write your book." But as time went on and 5 years became 20 years, it got to be a little bit less funny. And at one point, Marty Sherwin confessed to his wife, "I don't know that I am ever going to actually be able to write this book." Put the epitaph on my tombstone. Did a lot of research on Oppenheimer, but never got around to writing the book. In other words, Marty Sherwin was stuck. S-T-U-C-K, stuck. Now, most of us are not stuck in the way that Marty Sherwin was stuck. Most of us are not stuck in a 20-year research rabbit hole. But who among us is not stuck in our own way? We're stuck professionally. We're at a job we don't love. I'm not talking about me. We're at a job we don't love, but we can't figure out how to get out. We can't figure out what to do next. We're stuck financially, still worrying after all these years about inflow and outflow. We're stuck relationally. Our marriage is okay. It's okay. Wouldn't say it's great. Not talking about me. Our relationship with our kids can be stuck. You know the aphorism, little kids, little problems, bigger kids, bigger problems. All too often it feels like, we can't talk about the stuff that really matters with our adult kids when they're not thriving. They're kind of stuck, and we're kind of stuck not being able to talk about what really matters. S-T-U-C-K, stuck. We can be stuck emotionally. Like, I just want to wake up. I just want to wake up feeling good and happy. Just want to wake up with blue clouds, blue skies, no clouds, sunshine. And instead, I wake up, and there's storm clouds. Anxiety, edge, worry, anxiety, edge, worry, waiting for the other shoe to drop. I'm stuck emotionally. So many of us are stuck spiritually. How much have I really grown as a Jew from last Rosh Hashanah to this Rosh Hashanah? Our soul, our neshama, our inner life, our morale are stuck in neutral. And if a goal of our life is to thrive, if a goal of our life is to be living our best life now, all too often we cannot do that because we are stuck in important areas of our life. So how do we get unstuck? And we can learn how to get unstuck by learning from Marty Sherwin how he got unstuck. When we are stuck, the very first step is get some help. Reach out to somebody else for help. Because very often when we're stuck, we can't get unstuck by ourselves. Very often, our own self-reliance is not going to do the trick. The Talmud tells the story of a Rabbi Chia who was sick. And Rabbi Yochanan comes to visit him, and Rabbi Yochanan has the magic touch, and Rabbi Yochanan makes Rabbi Chia feel all better. And then in the very next scene, it's Rabbi Yochanan who is sick. But that magic touch, it doesn't come to his aid. He needs another sage, Rabbi Hanina, to make him feel better. And the Talmud says, if Rabbi Yochanan was able to make Rabbi Chia feel better, why can't Rabbi Yochanan make Rabbi Yochanan feel better? Why does he need another sage? And the Talmud answers, Ein chavush matir atzmo mibeit ha'asurim. We cannot get ourselves out of prison. We need somebody else to get us out of prison. And Marty Sherwin realized he needed somebody else to get him out of prison. So he reached out to a friend and a colleague, a fellow historian named Kai Bird. And he said to him, I am stuck. I'm 20 years, 50,000 pages, boxes and boxes, and I can't get anything written. Will you help? And Kai Bird said, I think I know what you have. I think what you have is biographer's disease, which is not knowing when to stop researching and to start writing. And they had a concern about, they were already friends, would their friendship survive their collaboration? And they worked it through, they thought it would. Kai Bird said, yes, I'll help. They collaborated, and 5 years later, their book was born. And so when we are stuck, our very first question is, to whom am I going to turn for help? Because we need somebody else to help release us from our prison. Which leads to the second move, which is to get humble. Get humble. So Marty Sherwin had spent 20 years plus another 5 years writing this book. And Kai Bird spent 5 years writing this book. Marty Sherwin spent literally 5x as much time as Kai Bird writing this book. And you might have thought that he would have said, geez Louise, this is my life work. I want the lion's share of the credit. But when the book came out, American Prometheus, The Triumph and Tragedy of J. Robert Oppenheimer, this last line says it all, by Kai Bird and Martin J. Sherwin. In other words, the guy who spends 5 years gets first billing, and the guy who spends 25 years gets second billing. And Martin J. Sherwin. Could we do that? Could we do that kind of humility? Harry Truman famously observed that it's amazing what you can accomplish when you don't care about who gets the credit. How would we operationalize that kind of humility? So my wife Shira says that there are 3 things that we cannot say too often. I was wrong. I am sorry. I need help. She's particularly enthusiastic about my saying those 3 things. I think I might have inspired that teaching in her. But the truth is that all of us could say those 3 simple lines. And Rosh Hashanah is the perfect time to be thinking about how do these 3 lines, each one short, 3 words, I was wrong. I am sorry. I need help. How do those intersect with our lives? Because we cannot get unstuck until we first get deeply humble. The gold standard and Martin J. Sherwin. How do we do that? Which leads to the 3rd move, which is to get moving. When we're stuck, it doesn't matter where we start. Start anywhere. Start somewhere. It just matters that we start. So here's what Marty Sherwin did. He had all these boxes. He started just sending boxes to Kai Bird. And Kai Bird started reading the 50,000 pages. And then Kai Bird just started typing up chapters. And Kai Bird would send it to Marty Sherwin, who would read it, and he would say, yeah, that's a really good draft, but you're missing anecdotes. And then Marty Sherwin would add the anecdotes. And a chapter was born, and so it went. When we're stuck, starting somewhere is better than not starting at all. Which then leads to the 4th move, which is once we start somewhere, we can get momentum on our side and get flow and mojo. So once Marty Sherwin started sending these chapters to Kai Bird, and Kai Bird started writing chapters, and Marty Sherwin started adding anecdotes, finally, after 20 years, Marty Sherwin got on track and started writing his own chapters, and now both writers were writing chapters. They both had momentum. And 5 years later, this book was born, came out in 2005, and it won the Pulitzer Prize in 2006, which was shared by Kai Bird and Martin J. Sherwin. Now, there was a coda to this whole story that is as important as the story itself. It is true that Kai Bird helped Marty Sherwin write this book. That is true. But the coda is that in helping Marty Sherwin get unstuck, Kai Bird also helped himself get unstuck. Kai Bird at the time was 48 years old. He was a historian but didn't have a PhD, so he couldn't teach at the university level. He had written a couple of biographies, but they were modest successes at best. And as has been reported widely at the time, especially this summer, at the time his wife was the primary breadwinner. And she was tiring of that role. And she felt that he was underachieving. She felt that he was stuck, and he felt that he was stuck. And so when he helped Marty Sherwin get unstuck, he helped get himself unstuck as well. And this is the deepest resonance of getting unstuck. Not only did they manage to write a book, not only did that book become a masterpiece and win a Pulitzer, not only did that book really inspire the major motion picture, not only did they each get each other unstuck, but their friendship not only survived, it thrived. They were even stronger friends after the collaboration. And when Marty Sherwin died in the fall of 2021, they were just really close friends. So here's the good news about being stuck. It really is an opportunity to get unstuck. Get help. Get humble. Get moving. Get momentum. Get a Pulitzer Prize. Get a major motion picture on the basis of that Pulitzer Prize. But even if you don't get the last two, you will have a better life, you'll be free of the areas where you were stuck, and you'll have a deeper friendship with the person who helped you get unstuck and helped themselves in the process. And aren't win-win relationships ultimately what life is all about? Shana Tova. We continue